Most of your suffering is just poor thinking. That's not a very nice thing to say, is it? You could say that's not very considerate, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's true. Most of our suffering is just poor thinking. There's two parts to this video. First of all, I will explain what I mean by poor thinking. And secondly, I will tell you how to stop doing it. So what is poor thinking? Well, here's an example. You get a headache? You think I have a terrible headache. It's the worst headache I've ever had. Why does it have to be this bad? This is unbearable. Life is so unfair. Everyone is against me. That kind of thinking, that catastrophizing, that kind of thinking makes your headache much worse. If instead you think, well, it's just a headache, it's not that serious, it will go away. What can I do to make myself feel a little bit better? You will feel better. Your headache won't go away any faster, but you will feel better. So much of our suffering is just making it worse with our thinking. So why do we do that? Well, there's two reasons why we do that. The first reason is that we want to be understood. So if you have a headache, you want someone to come along and say, "You have a terrible headache. I can see that you have a terrible headache. You must be suffering so much." You don't really want them to say, "You look a little pale. Are you sure you're okay?" You want them to acknowledge that you are in pain, so you start catastrophizing. Start telling a story about how bad it is. And then when they say, "Oh my God, that sounds awful," then you feel seen. Then you feel validated. But you don't really want validation. What you want is relief. Relief comes from feeling better inside, not from someone else acknowledging how bad you feel. The second reason why we do this is because we want to take action. So let's say you have a headache and you want to go to work. You know you shouldn't go to work because you might get worse, but you want to go to work. So you think, well, it's not that serious. Little headache, I can push through it. Everyone has headaches. This is unbearable. I need to stay in bed all day. Life is so unfair. No one considers me. And now, you feel justified in not going to work. You feel like you deserve not to go to work. And maybe you do deserve not to go to work. But the reason you have that conclusion is not because you thought, well, I have a headache, it's not serious, I should still go. Or, well, it's serious, but I should still go. You didn't have that thought. You had all these other thoughts that led you to the same conclusion. But these thoughts did not help you. They just caused you more suffering. So how do we stop doing this? Well, it's actually quite simple, but it's not easy. All you have to do is catch yourself doing it. Every time you feel a negative emotion, every time you're tempted to catastrophize, every time you're tempted to tell a story about how bad things are, about how unfair things are, every time you feel that urge, just notice it. Don't give in to it. Don't act on it. Just notice it and do something else. Maybe you were going to tell someone how terrible your headache is, but instead, you tell them about the movie you watched last night. Maybe you were going to tell yourself that life is unfair and you're such a victim and everyone's against you, but instead you sit down and you write out 3 new things you're grateful for. Every time you catch yourself doing it, you do something else. You distract yourself. Now I know that this is not easy. In fact, it's really hard. It's almost impossible unless you have some kind of a trigger that leads you to do it. For example, if you're an anxious person, you're going to be triggered all the time because you're always going to be worried that something's going wrong. So it's good to know that it's happening and it's good to try to stop it. But it's also good to have some kind of a professional help to stop it. Now, if you're triggered all the time, if you're very anxious, that's something you should definitely work on. So remember, most of your suffering is just poor thinking. You can choose to stop doing it. If you stop doing it, you will suffer less. And if you want to keep sharpening that mindset, subscribe. This channel exists to turn your hardest moments into your strongest ones.